Chapter 3. The Mall. Rats and the Devil's Detour. Thomas pulled into the mall parking lot, his Frankenstein of a car shuddering violently as he turned the key to kill the engine. The damned thing wouldn't die, though. Not right away. It sat there, chugging and gasping, spitting oily smoke into the thick Carolina air like an old man refusing to go without one last word. He yanked the key out, but the engine kept wheezing, groaning on in mechanical defiance. "Jesus Christ, just die already," he muttered, smacking the dashboard. Finally, with a final rattling cough, the beast fell silent. The smoke still clung to the air, the heat shimmering off the hood in waves, giving the illusion that the car was melting into the asphalt. If he had any doubt the drive had done real damage, the puddle of something dark and viscous spreading beneath the front bumper erased it. But Thomas wasn't here to worry about his dying heap of metal. He was here for the night. Stepping out, he took in the scene before him. The mall. It was the biggest place he'd ever been in his life, but still, nothing compared to the endless sprawl of the mountains. This was man's attempt at creating a kingdom, but instead of ancient pines and whispering winds, it was filled with flickering neon, overzealous air conditioning, and the distinct smell of greasy food mixed with cheap cologne. Right outside the arcade, they gathered. A pack of kids who looked like they'd been plucked straight from an MTV music video and tossed onto the steaming blacktop. If he'd known the term mall rat before now, he'd have understood it in an instant. The sheer volume of hairspray alone made the entire parking lot a fire hazard. These kids weren't just wild, they were feral. Leather, denim, and neon bandanas tied in questionable fashion choices. They weren't just here to kill time. They were here to own the night, to make sure no one forgot them, to leave a mark on this world, even if that mark was just a cigarette burn on the mall's concrete pillars. And right in the middle of them all stood Davy. Davy, with his wild, shoulder-length hair and a bandana tied around his forehead like he was the lost member of Guns N' Roses. Axl Rose, if Axl had acne and a bit of a beer gut. The moment he spotted Thomas, his face split into a grin. "Holy hell, you made it! Thought that rust bucket of yours would have exploded somewhere around mile 10. Thomas smirked, slapping his friend's outstretched hand before pulling him into a back-pounding hug. "Almost did. Figured if I was gonna die, might as well make it somewhere with air conditioning." Davy barked out a laugh. "Too bad, man. We just got kicked out." Sure enough, the mall cops, glorified rent-a-cops with clip-on ties and ill-fitting polyester uniforms, were making their rounds, ushering the rowdy teens toward the exits. Thomas had no clue why, but everyone else seemed to. As they filtered out into the thick, soupy heat of the southern night, the real plan for the evening began to take shape. A ritual, one that had been played out 1,000 times before and would be played out 1,000 times more until someone crashed too hard or got arrested. Cars gathered like vultures in a distant corner of the lot. Discussions were held, cash pooled together in sweaty fists. The great negotiations of beer and weed commenced, and then the magic words were spoken. "I know a place." No explanation, no address, just blind faith and engines roaring to life. Thomas found himself crammed into the back of Davy's '82 Nissan 280Z, a car not designed to carry more than 2 people comfortably, especially not when one of those people was a 6'2", 240-pound mountain boy. But here he was, folded into the back like a human accordion while Davy's girlfriend, Lexi, took the passenger seat without a second thought. The girl was a walking hair commercial, standing at just over 4'11", but somehow managing to have a solid 2 feet of teased, sprayed, and immovable golden curls atop her head. It was like a cotton candy explosion dyed the color of nicotine-stained teeth. "Sorry, Thomas," she chirped, not sounding sorry at all. "I get carsick in the back." Thomas sighed, trying to shift his leg, which had gone completely numb. "It's fine. I love not feeling my lower half." Then the caravan moved. 20 miles later, they pulled off some dirt road, weaving through a landscape that felt like a place people came to disappear. No street lights, no houses, just trees pressing in on all sides like silent spectators to whatever madness was about to unfold. The place turned out to be a construction site, just an open lot of dirt, lumber piles, and unfinished skeletal structures waiting to become something real. It was perfect. Within minutes, the party materialized like a ghost called forth. Speakers blared from multiple car trunks, each battling for dominance. Bonfires sparked to life. Cases of Mad Dog 2020 were cracked open, the sickly sweet smell of artificial fruit hanging in the humid air, and the night roared on. By the time dawn crept over the treetops, the battlefield was evident. Bodies lay draped over tarps, half buried in sawdust, curled up on piles of lumber like makeshift coffins. Someone had apparently decided jousting with 14-foot Tudok-4s was a good idea, judging by the two guys sprawled in the mud, their faces painted in bruises and splinters. Thomas sat on the hood of his car, staring at the carnage with a mix of amusement and horror. Davy was just a pair of feet sticking out from under a tarp. With some effort and a few solid kicks, Thomas roused his friend from the dead. The ride back was silent. Not out of regret, but because none of them had the energy to speak. By the time Thomas poured himself into the driver's seat of his own car, he knew one thing for certain. He wasn't going back to the mountains. Something out there had watched him for years, waiting for him to step too far into the dark. But here, in the neon wasteland of suburban rebellion, he had found a different kind of darkness. One that smelled like beer and cigarette smoke, that played power chords at full volume until the sun rose. And, for now, that was enough.